The wind howled through the ancient trees that surrounded Willowbrook Manor, a sprawling mansion nestled at the edge of the small, quiet town. For decades, the townsfolk had whispered stories of the manor's dark and twisted history, tales that sent shivers down the spines of anyone who dared listen. On a cold, moonless night, Emily, a young writer seeking inspiration for her next novel, arrived in Willowbrook. She had heard the rumors of the haunted manor and was drawn to the eerie legends that clung to its dilapidated walls like ghostly tendrils. As she approached the imposing gates of Willowbrook Manor, Emily felt a sense of foreboding that she couldn't shake. The mansion loomed before her, its facade adorned with crumbling stone and ivy that had long since surrendered to the ravages of time. The windows, like vacant eyes, stared out into the darkness, and the air was heavy with the weight of the past. Determined to uncover the secrets of Willowbrook Manor, Emily had secured a room at the town's inn, where the innkeeper had reluctantly shared stories of the mansion's grim history. She learned of the wealthy Willowbrook family who had once called the manor home, of their descent into madness, and of the tragic events that had led to their downfall. Despite the innkeeper's warnings, Emily ventured to the manor the following evening. Armed with a lantern, she made her way through the overgrown garden that had once been meticulously maintained, but now resembled a tangled labyrinth of thorns and shadows. The mansion's grand entrance loomed before her, its massive wooden doors a portal to a world unknown. As Emily entered Willowbrook Manor, the air grew frigid, and she could hear the faint echo of her footsteps against the marble floor. The interior was a haunting reflection of the exterior, faded grandeur and opulence now tarnished by time. Dust-covered chandeliers hung from the ceilings, their crystals long bereft of their former brilliance. Emily's curiosity led her deeper into the mansion, and she soon found herself in a dimly lit library. The room was lined with ancient books, their spines cracked and yellowed with age. One particular tome caught her eye, an intricately bound volume titled The Chronicles of Willowbrook. With trembling hands, Emily opened the book and began to read. The chronicles recounted the tragic tale of the Willowbrook family, their obsession with the occult, and the dark rituals they had performed within the very walls of the manor. It told of a malevolent force that had taken hold of them, driving them to madness and despair. As Emily delved deeper into the book's pages, a sudden chill gripped the room. She glanced up, her lantern casting flickering shadows across the library. And that's when she saw it, a spectral figure, draped in tattered rags, standing at the far end of the room. Her heart raced as she watched the apparition, its hollow eyes fixed on her. It raised a translucent hand and pointed towards the book she held. Emily, unable to tear her gaze away, closed the tome and cautiously backed away from the specter. The ghostly figure didn't move, but its presence seemed to permeate the room, suffusing it with an oppressive aura. Emily made a hasty exit, the feeling of being watched lingering in her every step. That night, as Emily lay in her inn room, she couldn't shake the encounter from her mind. The Chronicles of Willowbrook had unveiled the mansion's darkest secrets, but it had also awakened something within the manor itself, a malevolent force that refused to remain dormant. The following evening, Emily returned to the manor, her determination to uncover the truth stronger than her fear. Armed with a camera, she documented her exploration, capturing the eerie beauty and decay of Willowbrook Manor. She ventured deeper into the mansion, each room revealing a new layer of its tragic history. In one room, she discovered a grand piano, its keys dust-covered and silent. As she aimed her camera at it, the keys began to move on their own, producing a haunting melody that echoed through the mansion's desolate halls. Emily's hands trembled as she recorded the supernatural phenomenon. In another room, she found a portrait of a young woman with striking green eyes, a woman who bore a haunting resemblance to the spectral figure she had encountered in the library. The eyes in the portrait seemed to follow her every move, and Emily couldn't help but feel a connection between the woman and the malevolent force that now inhabited the manor. As Emily ventured further, the manor seemed to come alive with eerie manifestations. Doors slammed shut on their own, candles flickered without a breeze, and disembodied whispers echoed through the corridors. The malevolent force grew stronger, its presence an oppressive weight on Emily's shoulders. In a room at the top of a winding staircase, Emily discovered an old, dusty mirror. Its surface was clouded with age, but as she gazed into it, her reflection began to change. Her own eyes turned a haunting shade of green, and her image transformed into that of the woman from the portrait. Terrified, Emily stumbled back from the mirror, her heart pounding. The malevolent force that had taken hold of Willowbrook Manor was trying to claim her as its own, and she realized that her quest for truth had placed her in grave danger. Desperate to escape the manor's clutches, Emily made her way to the grand entrance, but the massive doors that had welcomed her now refused to budge. Panic welled up inside her as she pounded on the doors, pleading for release. As Emily stood before the grand entrance of Willowbrook Manor, her frantic attempts to open the massive doors proved futile. Panic gnawed at her as she realized the malevolent force within the mansion was determined to keep her captive within its walls. Desperation drove her to retrace her steps through the eerie, candlelit corridors of the manor, searching for anything that might offer an escape from the suffocating grip of the supernatural. She wandered through a labyrinth of winding hallways, each seemingly identical to the last. The flickering candlelight casting elongated, ghostly shadows that danced and mocked her at every turn. The oppressive aura of the manor bore down on her like a physical weight. Whispers echoed through the dimly lit corridors, chilling her to the bone. Emily couldn't discern the words, but the voices seemed to carry the weight of centuries of suffering and despair. Her footsteps echoed in the emptiness, a haunting rhythm that seemed to resonate with the malevolent presence that surrounded her. As she moved further into the heart of the mansion, the temperature dropped drastically, and her breath misted in the frigid air. The walls themselves seemed to pulse with a malevolent energy, as if they were living entities, closing in around her. Emily's exploration led her to an old, dusty study. The room was lined with shelves of books on the occult and paranormal, their spines cracked and yellowed with age. Desperation drove her to scour the shelves, and she soon stumbled upon a tome that detailed methods of exorcising malevolent spirits from haunted places. Her trembling fingers traced the incantations and rituals that promised to free the mansion from the darkness that had held it captive for so long. With newfound resolve, Emily continued her search for the malevolent presence that had trapped her. She ventured back to the haunted library, where she had first encountered the spectral figure. The room was suffused with an unnatural chill, and the candles lining the shelves flickered erratically, casting eerie, dancing shadows. Emily positioned herself in the center of the room and began the exorcism incantation. Her voice trembled as she recited the ancient words, the syllables resonating with a power beyond her comprehension. The very atmosphere in the room seemed to change, as if the very air had become charged with a potent energy. The spectral figure, draped in tattered rags, materialized before her. It let out a guttural, anguished howl that seemed to emanate from the depths of its tormented soul. Its form wreathed and contorted, a grotesque ballet of suffering and rage. Emily's heart pounded in her chest as she continued the incantation, her voice growing stronger with each word. The malevolent specter's eyes blazed with an otherworldly fire, and it clawed at the air as if trying to resist the exorcism. As the incantation reached its climax, a blinding, searing light erupted from the specter. Emily shielded her eyes with her arm, the brilliance burning into her very being. The room quaked, books and candles tumbling from the shelves, as if the mansion itself recoiled in agony. With a final, ear-piercing wail, the malevolent specter dissipated, its form dissipating like smoke in a strong wind. The oppressive aura that had hung over Willowbrook Manor began to recede, and the candles in the library flickered and died one by one until darkness enveloped the room. Emily stood in the now silent library, her heart still pounding from the encounter. She had succeeded. The malevolent force that had haunted the manor for centuries had been banished. A profound silence descended upon the mansion, a silence that was both eerie and peaceful. With a mixture of exhaustion and relief, Emily made her way back to the grand entrance. To her astonishment, the massive doors now stood wide open, as if they had never been sealed shut. The manor, once a place of malevolence and despair, now felt serene and tranquil. As Emily stepped out into the moonlit garden, she couldn't help but look back at Willowbrook Manor. It was a place that had held her captive, a place of malevolence and mystery, but it was also a place that had revealed its secrets to her and allowed her to banish the darkness that had plagued it. With a deep sense of closure, Emily left the town of Willowbrook behind, knowing that she had played a part in bringing peace to a haunted place. The mansion, now free from the malevolent force that had held it in its thrall, stood as a silent testament to the power of courage and determination. And as Emily walked away, the ancient trees surrounding Willowbrook Manor whispered their gratitude, their branches swaying in the breeze, as if acknowledging the bravery of the young writer who had dared to confront the darkness and bring light to a place long shrouded in shadows.